Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Back when my son, Caleb, was 3, I found out his mother, Deborah, 42 female, was cheating on me with my brother, Drew, 47 male. She left me for him, and I ended up losing half my money, as well as losing Caleb 50% of the time. I was quickly replaced by Drew in Caleb's eyes, as he was more present. I'm a truck driver and owner-operator, so I was gone most of the time. But I did try to make up for it in whatever way I could, though that did nothing. He obviously doesn't respect or love me, or at least not as much as he loves Drew. I was really depressed over my life turning out that way, and thought of ending it a lot. The fact that Drew practically stole my life and really didn't face any consequences, as my family, especially my dad, expected me to just move on. Things started getting better after I met my wife, June, 42 female. She was your typical mean librarian, and it took me about 7 times to convince her to even talk to me. But it worked, and I'm now proud to be her husband. Naturally, I started prioritizing her, and since Caleb didn't seem to care, I put her over him. I didn't want to deal with someone who didn't like me or waste my energy on them. I stopped forcing him to visit me, which he didn't mind. Any free time I had, it was either trips with June or staying home together. We eloped when Caleb was 15. She's been nothing but nice to him and is a good stepmom to him, even when he's being a jerk, which I'm sure my ex supports and encourages it. But we don't see him much, so June doesn't mind. Now on to the problem. Caleb has an award ceremony, and I guess Drew couldn't make it, so he invited me. I couldn't go since I had plans with my love. I told him the truth, and he got mad and said it was wrong of me to pick her over him. I told him he could invite his grandpa since I didn't want, nor was I going to, cancel on June, and that seemed to piss him off more. He accused me of loving June over him, and I didn't deny it. I told him I did. He got quiet and then hung up. I later got a call from Deborah, calling me all sorts of names for my statement, saying Caleb has been crying nonstop. I just blocked her. My dad messaged me saying what I said was cruel. My wife is on my side. Am I the a-hole? OP is not wrong to feel the way he does, but he is wrong for the way he dealt with it. OP should have told Caleb he feels like he only invited OP because OP's brother couldn't attend, and that made OP feel really bad. OP could also have congratulated him and offered to take him out to a nice dinner or get him a present for his achievements, at a time when OP is not busy. OP also needs not to forget that his son was a little child when all this happened, and OP was hardly there for him. I also would like to hear this story from OP's son's perspective. And now let's hear the community's opinion. I understand where you're coming from because you've laid out the context, but I'm sure your son is totally oblivious, so your words came out of nowhere. Sit down with him only, and tell him what you said here. Allow him that closure of understanding why his bio dad doesn't love him as much. You're the a-hole, only in that you said that without context. He needed to hear how his treatment of you led to this point. Just tossing it out there without that bit of info was unfair. No 17-year-old is self-reflective enough to wonder why you'd feel that way. Edited to add, your ex-wife and dad can and should kick rocks. They suck. Not the a-hole. You have every right to feel how you feel and put your wife first and have every reason to. But I do think you need to explain to your son why. You've expressed your reasoning on this post. Explain it to him in the exact same way. He's 17 years old and is old enough to know the truth, and don't sugarcoat it. I'm still in shock about the whole thing, so I'm sorry if the details aren't the best, and I know this sounds straight out of a movie, but I promise it isn't. But my best friend, female 17, we will call her Holly, had a baby Saturday night. She did not know she was pregnant, and neither did I, and honestly, she didn't even look pregnant the entire time and showed virtually no symptoms of pregnancy. So when she went into labor after us going to the seamstress for our prom dresses, I was under the impression she was having really horrible period pain. Until my other friend was also there, Sal, and I'm the one driving at this point. So she has a full view on the entire situation, and she drops on me that she thinks she's having a baby. So I'm panicking and just driving towards a hospital at this point. But Sal and Holly started screaming at me to pull over, and I kid you not, The baby girl was out in under 10 minutes upon pulling over. The baby cried and it looked full term, but at the same time, I've never seen childbirth, so I have no idea if the baby actually was, but it looked like a newborn to me. After the baby was born, we sat in silence for like 5 minutes, and Holly breaks the silence for us to go pick up Ethan, the baby daddy, her boyfriend. So we go pick him up, and dude was dumbfounded, to the point he thought we were pranking him, until he saw the baby was still attached to her via umbilical cord. We had nothing to cut it with. Sal then starts saying we need to go to a hospital and call our parents, because this is way bigger than us at this point. Holly doesn't want us to do either, because her parents would freak on her and no longer pay for her college. Plus, she didn't want to be a mom, and she knew her parents would probably force her to raise it. So we decided that we're going to leave the baby at a firehouse. We go to a Target and bought a basket, 3 blankets, scissors, first aid stuff, and clips. We successfully were able to detach the baby from her. We had to wait until night so no one would see us do the drop-off. She wrote a long note and left it in the basket. We then dropped the baby off at the fire station, and we watched and waited to confirm that the firefighters retrieved the baby, and luckily they did. Afterwards, I dropped off everyone to their houses, and we swore secrecy to never tell anyone about that night. Holly sent me like $200 to get my back seat detailed and cleaned. I know you guys are probably wondering what's the issue then for you to be here complaining. Well, Holly, I saw her today, and she looks awful, and not in a postpartum way. Like, she looks extremely sick, very pale, and has a fever. I think she needs medical attention, because we think she might have an infection. Sal thinks it's because her placenta is still inside of her. But regardless, I'm scared for my friend, and I don't want her to die, and I could have prevented it. But I'm sorry for ranting. I just have no one to talk to about this, and I'm worried about her and the baby girl that was surrendered, because again, she didn't know she was pregnant and had 0 prenatal, and she was drinking and smoking W. Edit. She's getting medical attention. Thank you for all the concerns. I have seen the TV show I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant on TLC. I still can't believe it can happen, but, well, it does. Good OP took her friend to the hospital, and I hope she is recovering. Peskanov says, get your friend to the hospital now. As teens, I'm just glad you left the baby in a safe haven spot. Release the crack W says, she needs to go to the hospital. Where's her placenta? She sounds like she has a puerperal infection, an infection of the genital tract occurring in labor or within 42 days of the postpartum period. Especially with an unattended birth, she needs to be seen. She is probably on her way to becoming septic. She needs to tell her parents, and she needs to go to the hospital. I'm an OB nurse. Don't let it get worse. Valuable Extent 7260 says, this is what it looks like when you failed parenting. Not your friend being preggo, but the fact that she's this terrified to tell her parents, and she feels they'll abandon her, but also force something she wasn't ready for. I'm so sorry for her friend. You guys are 17. You have medical privacy. I'd take her and then just make up some kind of sickness to your parents. Your friend needs this. So, I technically was born for her to take from. I'm a savior sibling, and that was the only reason my parents had a second child. They were one and done with my sister, but when she was 2, she got very sick, and so they had me to save her. Growing up, I felt every bit of the lack of interest my parents had in me. I knew before I hit middle school that my parents had me for one reason only. Yet I saw them adore and spoil my sister and make sure she had everything. I grew up watching her grow up with devoted parents, while I had none. Because of the way we were raised, my sister and I were never close. She was used to getting what she wanted and being spoiled. I was forgotten until she needed something like blood. If I ever happened to have something that she wanted, you bet my parents let her have it, and they had no time for me complaining about it. They had no time for me, period. I'm sure on some level they were grateful that I had fulfilled my purpose, but nobody will ever convince me that they love me. Now we're both in our 20s, and my sister's tried to have a relationship. But it's still a lot of her wanting her way, and for me to pay for her, but she still gets to choose where we go and what we do. I'm expected to give her food off my plate. She ignores when I bring up how our childhood wasn't perfect like she talks about. She brings up how I wasn't present for stuff, and in the same sentence we'll talk about it being the best day. Eventually, I stopped saying yes, or if I did, I refused to pay, and refused to go along with what she wanted, and we saw each other far less. I also heard from her far less, which to me said she didn't really want a sister, she just wanted the person she was used to getting whatever from. A couple of weeks ago, she showed up at my house, where I live with friends and our partners, and she told me she needed a place to stay and attempted to invite herself in. She looked rough, so I told her she could get some food and something to drink, but she needed to stay someplace else. I suggested she call our parents. She didn't want to go anywhere else and was trying to befriend my boyfriend and the other partners, since she knew my friends didn't like her. I made it very clear and insisted she figure something else out. She told me I should be more willing to help her out, and why do I never want to do anything for her? I snapped at her saying that, and told her I am so tired of her taking from me and acting like it's what I was born to do. I told her our parents might have had me for that reason, but I'm more than that, and I never had a say in any of that, and if she wants to talk about things being fair, then she should think more on that. She had a very explosive reaction and left. She said afterward I suck for blaming her for our parents' actions. It just frustrated me because she doesn't acknowledge her own actions in that. Am I the a-hole? No matter what OP's parents did or didn't do, she's responsible for her own actions. After growing up, she had the opportunity to help change the dynamics that OP and her sister both grew up with, or show some respect and gratitude for all OP gave her growing up, even if it wasn't OP's choice. Instead, she chose to continue the behavior her parents set her up to. Empty Nest Nana says, "Not the a-hole, not even a little bit. If you haven't already, you might want to consider some personal therapy. What your parents did to you, the way they treat you, it is not normal. I bet you have a lot more trauma you haven't begun to process yet. I'm so sorry you live like that. That is twisted. Build your own family. I'm the black sheep. I made my own group of friends who over time are now my brothers and sisters. You can do the same." Bound Princess 84 says, "Not the a-hole. I'm genuinely sorry that your parents treated you like spare parts and that they taught your sister to do the same. I would go no contact with all of them. I doubt their behavior will ever change, and you don't owe any of them anything." Creepy Addict says, "Not the a-hole. You weren't blaming her for your parents' actions. You were blaming her for her actions. She's spoiled and used to getting her way. The golden child can go stay with her parents." I, 26 female, have a stepsister, 18 female, I've not seen in many, many years. She was so young when I last saw her. My relationship with my mom, her stepmom, was never a good one. She was never a good parent to me, and when she decided to get married and settle down, while also not attempting to be a good mom to me, I made the decision to fight hard to get my dad to win custody of me, which he did when I was 13. My mom was supposed to go to therapy and classes before the courts attempted to try reunification therapy for us, but she never took those steps, so we never did the therapy together, and won't. I have zero desire to be part of her life. I had a relationship with her parents and siblings, though not a close one, and was included by them though, and would see my mom from a distance for a few years at occasional family gatherings. My stepsister would be there also, and over time she became far closer to my maternal side than I was. My reason for not being very close to my maternal side is they would encourage me to give my mom a chance, and they would try and talk me into taking on the role of big sister for her stepdaughter because they knew my mom had zero desire to have any children at all and would not be having more, and apparently her stepdaughter struggled with not having siblings, so they wanted me to fill that gap for her. I wasn't interested then, and I'm not today. I don't hate the girl, but simply put, we are not family. And I really had little to do with anyone from my mom's side in a good 4 years, since virus. I received a digital invite to the baby shower 3 weeks ago, and I RSVP'd no. This was followed by another one, and followed by a message from my stepsister saying she wanted her baby's aunt to be there, and then followed by another message begging me to change my mind, and then another invitation that she personalized to ask me to be there, and she told me not to bring a gift, just me, because I would be the real gift. I told her I was not interested again, and then I blocked her. But she followed me to another platform, and then she begged and pleaded with me to change my mind. She said it wasn't too late for us to be sisters, and for me to be her baby's aunt. I told her I won't attend the baby shower, and I won't change my mind just because she keeps asking or sending invites. She told me she doesn't understand why I hate her, and this interaction prompted contact from my maternal grandparents, and they told me I shouldn't have been so cruel, and if I really had to let her down, I should have made it way softer. Am I the a-hole? Slightly Sane Mama 5 says, "I'm curious why your stepsister is so fixated on having a relationship with you. It's not like you were around much, doted on her, then disappeared. Why is it so important to family that you fulfill this person's fantasy of what a sister is like? It seems like stepsister built up this relationship in her mind, without any facts or even time spent together. Like teens are fixated on famous people and insist their idols reciprocate the relationship. You seem to have no more of a relationship with your stepsister than you have with the checkout person at Target, and it fascinates me as to why sister insists you need to have a relationship. Stepsister needs therapy to realize you do not owe her a relationship. Danube Kitty says, "Not the a-hole. You are basically strangers. I get she wants a sister, but you are within your rights to not want to be one to a stranger." Throwaway Ray Ray says, "Not the a-hole. No is a full sentence. The constant messages are too much. However, it seems like this girl needs an answer and hasn't really done anything ever to not deserve one. Something like, I wish you well and all the best with your pregnancy. However, I don't want a relationship with this part of the family, and this includes you. I have my reasons for this, which I ask you to respect." If she doesn't stop after that, you've done the best you can and not been an a-hole. The block button is your friend. Same for the family members that enable. My wife and I have been married for about 8 years now. I had a pretty generic middle-class upbringing, while her family would be considered old money. I have no idea how much wealth they actually have, but it's multi-generational, and needless to say, they'll never worry about money. They never give us cash outright, but for each of our kids' births, they set aside $100K in an interest-bearing account for their college, and they've been extremely generous with the vacations they've taken us on. My wife and I both have pretty good jobs, and while we have the security of knowing if we ever needed it, they'd help us, we are able to support our not very fancy lifestyle ourselves. This July, we are going on a trip with our kids and her family, including the nuclear families of her 2 siblings and then a few family friends of theirs. Mother-in-law and father-in-law are paying for everything, including the flights, villa we're staying at, and various meals and activities. This will be the 5th vacation like this they've taken us on, not including our honeymoon they paid for. I never imagined being this close to that kind of wealth before, but I have to say that they've been nothing but welcoming and generous with me. Even offering me high-paying jobs I probably don't deserve, and offering to pay for my grad school if I choose to go. My sister recently asked me what my summer plans were and if I had any trips. I told her about this one, and she got noticeably annoyed or jealous. She asked me why I've never asked about inviting her and her family, since other friends of the family get invited often to these big trips. Some have had 10 to 20 non-family members there that they've hosted, paid for. To be honest, I never even thought about asking to include my relatives in that, but I feel like that'd come off a little greedy, so I just don't. I told her that, and she thinks I'm being selfish. I think a lot of it is just jealousy, which I can understand, because she's complained about never being to Europe, and it's splurging for her to just go on a regional vacation. I do feel like it's kinda totally unrelated to my situation, though. Aunt Trell A says, "You are married to their daughter. You are family. Your sister is not family. Not the a-hole." Thinking Too Loud says, "Not the a-hole. Your sister is jealous and overstepping. And yes, you would come off as greedy. It is not your place to suggest to your father-in-law and mother-in-law more people to bring along on their trip. They are taking their daughter, her children, and her husband. You are the plus one in this case. That gives your sister zero reason to expect to be included." B.Ye Wu says, "Tell your sister to be brave and make her demand to your in-laws for an all-expense-paid vacation. Then watch how she shuts up. Your sister wants you to do her dirty work for her, at the risk of losing your privileged position with your in-laws and insulting them and your wife. She seems a bit immature to not realize yet that life isn't fair, and she can't get whatever she wants. Not the a-hole."